So guess what, everybody? American optimism has absolutely plummeted, and now people are feeling quite pessimistic. So take a look at this here. ABC News says, as President Joe Biden completed 100 days in office, the country was optimistic about the coming year. But now, just after hitting the 6-month mark, Americans' optimism about the direction of the country has plummeted nearly 20 points. 20 points, a new ABC News Ipsos poll finds. A majority, 55% of the public, say they are pessimistic about the direction of the country, a marked change from the roughly one-third, 36%, that said the same in an ABC News Ipsos poll published May 2nd. Jeez, that's a huge increase in pessimism. In the early May survey, Americans were more optimistic than pessimistic by a 28 percentage point margin. Optimism is now underwater by 10 points. Looking ahead to the next 12 months, fewer than half, 45%, now report feeling optimistic about the way things are going, a significant drop from about two-thirds, 64%, in the May poll. That's crazy. That's out of this world, man. This is probably the biggest swing I've ever seen in such a short time frame. Now, to what do we attribute this? Well, there's a number of things. Number one is sort of the reemergence of COVID, the new variants that are spreading now, even with a decent chunk of the population being vaccinated. The unvaccinated areas and unvaccinated people are sort of getting obliterated right now. But even with the new variants, even vaccinated people are getting COVID, but they just don't have severe symptoms and don't end up being hospitalized. But, I mean, geez, man, that's one thing where people are going, well, what the fuck? We thought we defeated this thing, or we were on the brink of defeating this thing, and now that's roaring back, so people aren't feeling very optimistic. But the other thing is this. What the fuck have they done? What has Washington done since that last COVID relief package with the $1,400 checks for people? What else have they done? How have they helped people economically? The fact of the matter is, they haven't in any serious way, and when the effects of that $1,400 ran out, people were left there like, okay, well, now what? Because a lot of the country is still reeling and is economically suffering. And so if people are struggling, more people are slipping into poverty, there's workaround to the eviction bans, and people are getting evicted. People don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. They don't see people in Washington really fighting for things that would help them right now. You would have needed a recurring payment, a monthly payment, in order for people to feel that way. So it's not rocket science. When you mix the surge of COVID with the fact that people are now economically right back in the position they were beforehand, where they really can't pay the bills and most people are struggling, and then maybe even throw in there the increase in weather disasters, the continued march towards the climate abyss, which is kind of speeding up right in front of our eyes, isn't it? I feel like very recently there's been a lot of things that have happened where people are like, oh, climate change is happening right this second, and we can see it. We can see it. I mean, in New York, it was hazy for like a week straight. Why? Because the smoke from the fires all the way out west came all the way across the country and blanketed the area where you couldn't see the sun for a week. What? So, it ain't good. And you got a guy who's like half dead leading it. You got a Republican Party that's off in crazy land talking about stop the steal still. I mean, unbelievable. All they want to do is fight the culture war. And all the Democrats do is, negotiate against themselves with Joe Manchin, figuring out the 1,000 things we can't do and we're not allowed to do and that we'll never be able to do. I mean, it's just, why would anybody be optimistic based on those facts? If we have President Joe Manchin, who 60% agrees with Trump, or we have Trump and the Republicans, who are a nightmare, there's no more relief on the way. COVID's getting worse and the climate is failing. What do you expect? By the way, amazing fact about this. Biden's approval rating is plummeting on almost every issue. There's one exception. There's one thing that stands out where people are giving him positive ratings. You want to guess what it is? Afghanistan. 55% of the country was like, yeah, we love that he's pulling out of Afghanistan. By the way, that's at the exact same time that the media is doing relentless propaganda against Biden pulling out. So the media is basically implying that we should stay, and they're running 1,000 stories about that. And even with that relentless propaganda, people are watching it and going, don't give a fuck. We need to bring our troops home. So I mean, the only silver lining here is, guess what? If you start doing good things, the optimism will rise. You know, if Biden were to fight for a UBI, if he were to cancel student loan debt, if he were to do an executive order to eliminate some medical debt or cover the bills for people who had COVID and got treatment, if he were to do some good shit, then his approval rating would go up and the optimism would go up. But, you know, doesn't look like that shit is happening. And so we're going to keep plummeting. And do it at your own risk, man. Democrats have really convinced themselves that, like, the less they do, the better. I don't know how you can believe that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Because you're allowing these lunatics to have a shot in the midterms, and in 2024, the Republicans, who are open about the fact they don't want to do shit, but they just want to fight the culture war and trigger the libs all day, you're opening the door for them to maybe have a decent showing because you ain't doing shit. If you were doing shit, then they'd have no chance. They'd have no chance if Biden actually did positive things. You know, if Biden actually legalized recreational marijuana or canceled student loan debt or gave a recurring stimulus check or whatever. I'm telling you, man, that would have a huge impact, but it doesn't look like they're doing it, and people are getting the sense that they aren't going to do it. So they're devastated.